Captain John Conrad here. I'm worried about the US-UK special relationship based off recent news. And I want to explain why this is important, not just for the shipping world and maritime trade and naval relationships, but for the broader world. So you have to go back to World War II, and the Allies won, and the US created what was called the Bretton Woods system. We made a deal to all the nations who needed to rebuild after the devastating war. And we said, if you get rid of your colonies, if you transact trade in US dollars, if you promise not to go to war and build up these huge militaries, in exchange for that, we will protect your interests globally, we will protect maritime trade, and we will open up the U.S. markets for you to sell goods. We'll also open up Wall Street and give you low-cost loans. And everyone thinks this was overnight successful. It wasn't really. Only two nations fully enacted took these advantages. Those were the two nations that we could force to, namely Germany and Japan. But after a few years of staggering economic growth under this system, the other European nations looked at Germany and Japan, and one by one the dominoes fell. They said, we want to participate. Last two holdouts were really France and England. France came in, but they said, we want to retain a few of our colonies, and we ended up making that deal with France. The UK made another deal with the United States, and they basically said, the center of this trade policy is really ocean trade. We want to retain some control over that ocean trade. And we agreed to this. We agreed that the United Kingdom could keep the UN maritime body in London, the International Maritime Organization, IMO. They could retain their dominance in maritime insurance. They could... it would be UK maritime law would continue. And United Kingdom, which the pound was devalued, they wanted to retain financial control over the system and some of this legal control. So we allowed them, or however you want to debate who allowed who, to start opening up shell companies, Bahamas, Cayman Islands, and to kind of control those shell companies. And the shipping world loves shell companies. In a shipping structure, you might have a big ship owner, but underneath it will be several divisions. And each individual ship in that will be owned by an individual LLC. And they like this shell company control. They can hide and move around profits. And this is very important. And a lot of those shell companies can be traced back to the United Kingdom. So fast forward to the 90s, and Europe said, hey, instead of giving all this control to the United States, why don't we create a similar system ourselves? Problem is, no individual European country was large enough for this. So they created the European Union and had some success. European Union says, we're not going to trade goods coming across. We're going to share all the labor. Pretty much very similar to what the United States did. But it wasn't as successful as the United States. And the UK eventually decided, we are going to enact Brexit. We're going to get out of the European Union. And some of the moneyed interest behind the Brexit, it was mostly populist vote, but there was some moneyed interest behind that. And the thought on trade was, we have a special relationship with the United States. Let's get closer ties with them. So Boris Johnson, after Brexit, came to the United States. They talked to Trump. And the Trump White House basically said, what's in it for me? And there are a lot of advantages that the United Kingdom has in charge of maritime. The UK has several flag of convenience territories, Bermuda, Cayman Islands, Isle of Man, which all vote in the IMO, which is based in London. A lot of the people who work at IMO are British. They have the maritime law and insurance, ship financing. It's a huge center for making those deals in the ship financing world. Huge center for making the deals in port financing. Education and the training, they still have large institutions like Warsaw Maritime Academy, Plymouth University, and a lot of these people go out into the shipping world and control. They have research and development centers. They have government policy and influence. And they have one of the largest navies on Earth. But more than that, that navy ties into the Five Eyes intelligence network of the United States. And this gives those insurance companies access to specialized insurance information to help them negotiate and lower rates and determine actual risk. So it's greatly beneficial to the UK. But these are also things that are of value to the world order and are critically important to the United States itself. But unfortunately, under Pompeo and Trump, they did not understand the importance, these royal flush cards, that would really benefit the United States if we, close in ties with the UK. And we thought, or the Trump White House thought, that their demands were unreasonable. The very first demand that Boris Johnson brought to Trump, or request, it wasn't a demand, was bringing the UK flag into the Jones Act so they could start delivering LNG to the Northeast. So basically, the Trump administration told Boris Johnson, go fish. And a number of conservative prime ministers continued. And then the Biden administration, Biden-Harris, well, Biden is Irish. People don't remember that, in the 70s and 80s, there was a large Irish contingency which were active in the United States, politically active, to pressure the UK to get out of Northern Ireland. And that has mostly subsided, but people of Biden's age remember that. And he didn't do much to counteract the UK. He just wasn't very excited about making a deal. Neither was Harris. She has Jamaican heritage. There's a long history of tensions between the Jamaican academic community, especially Kamala Harris's dad was a Marxist professor, and England itself. So there wasn't going to be a deal. And now we are going towards a contested election. If Kamala Harris wins, it will likely be business as usual for the shipping community and naval relations. But if Trump wins, there is opportunity to make this deal because the Trump administration, you look at Project 2025, the work at Heritage, they're waking up to the importance of this maritime trade. They're waking up to the importance of naval cooperation, particularly in the Red Sea. They're seeing the dissolution of these alliances within the Navy. Look at the Red Sea. We had Operation Prosperity Guardian, and then Europe decided to create their own command structure. And some of our biggest allies, like Australia, who's been with us in almost every war, and Japan and Korea, have not sent ships because they're worried about China. So there's interest within the Republican world policymakers of, hey, let's make this deal with the UK. But now you have Labour government coming in, and you have this First Amendment fight. You have UK politicians warning that if Americans retweet, inflammatory messages, what they deem as Islamophobic messages, Americans could be arrested. And there's this populist backlash against the UK. Americans generally love the UK. If you ask the average American, we appreciate the special relationship. We appreciate the work that UK has done in the global war on terror, Iraq and Afghanistan. But that populist thing is starting to change. And now the United Kingdom is going into the meat grinder of US politics. And where does that lead you? It's getting into the headlines. The media is going to start manipulating this. And I very much worry that the UK could become a political pawn. And we just saw this yesterday in this absolutely, mind-blowing announcement by the head of the International Chamber of Shipping. So this is the organization in London that represents 80% of the ship owners around the world. Guy Platten said to the Financial Times that he is extremely worried that if Trump comes back in the White House, he could lead us into a major global war. He said that Trump could extend the or double down on the trade war that was with China. And in addition to that, once China feels like it is, no longer able to trade with its largest market, the United States, and these pressures go in, that will lead to war. He also said that he met with Trump in 2018, and he said it was a scary meeting. Trump's scared. So what you have in the UK is you have behind the Labour Party, you have the very liberal element of the EU pulling the Labour Party away from America towards the EU. But now you have this shipping company warning about Trump. And he did not say anything about Biden, creating some of the diplomatic tensions that led to the Red Sea or led to Ukraine, Russia's attack on the Ukraine and all the mines that were in the Black Sea. He didn't criticize Biden for the growing geopolitical mess, which Trump, with the Elon Musk interview, has. But he did criticize Biden's aggressive stance towards China, which makes you wonder, why is the international shipping community under the Chamber of Commerce, why are they so worried about China's interests? You have to ask, is the European Union's, some of their intentions of bringing the Labour Party into the more liberal socialist camp, partly influenced by communist China? The reality is China is extremely important to the shipping community. They own a large number of ports. They have thousands of merchant ships. And if you went to the largest shipping conference in the United States, Connecticut Maritime Association, normally there are lots of Europeans. This year I went and there were very few of these large European shipping companies. And I asked them why, and they said basically a few of them admitted, most told you, oh, it's just an off year, but a few of them admitted that China said it's either go to the Chinese conference or go to our conference. So I worry that some of this push against the United States by the shipping community, particularly the nexus of the shipping community in London, is because of Chinese interests. And if you have the EU pulling the United States away, and you have the very strong, very internationally powerful shipping community in London pushing the United States away, that leaves the UK in this no man's zone. And it's going to be very difficult, even if the United States wants to help, politically it's going to be difficult to help out the UK with the labor and the shipping community aligned against the Trump administration. Where does this lead the UK? I don't know. But it has major potential implications on global shipping, on future insurance rates, on naval cooperation. And I think it's something that we really need to watch. And as Americans, whether you're Democrat or Republican, we should take this opportunity to reassess our relationship with the UK and understand these important royal flush cards, how important it is that they control laws and insurance and maritime finance. I think they have a lot to bring into the table. And if we don't extend a hand and give them trade benefits in exchange, if we allow the politics to decide this rather than logical thinking and the importance of global maritime trade, I think it's going to be a very dangerous future for both the U.S. and UK. Thank you for watching. Captain John Conrad. Subscribe to my Twitter and gcaptain.com. Subscribe to our newsletter. Take care.